All right. Hello, everyone. This is Ross again. Today, we're going to do something different. We're going to watch a leadership video, and we're going to watch it together. And at times, I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to give my thoughts on what we're watching. And the purpose of this is just to give some thoughts and insights on different leadership approaches. And a lot of times, my ideas and comments can come from things I'm reacting to. And so today, we're going to watch. This is entirely random. We're just going to watch this together and see how it is. So here we go. I'm going to full screen this. So this is 10 leadership skills that every leader should have. And let's see if this is in any way good.
Many years ago, I had the opportunity to shadow the CEO of a major technology company for one day. That one day changed my life forever. Walking through the hallways of his company, hearing him interact on phone calls, and watching him tackle projects and challenges was like nothing I... Skill number 1, go for the small yes. Leaders are extremely adept at getting people to buy into their ideas, even ones they might not normally say yes to. Two researchers, Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser, decided to test exactly how to get people to do something. They went door to door in a small neighborhood and asked people if they would put up a large sign on their front lawn that said, "Drive carefully." Only 20% of people contacted said they would put up the sign in their yard. Then they asked people if they would put up a much smaller 3-inch sign saying, "Drive carefully," in their window. Many more people said yes to the smaller sign. But here's where the results got interesting. The researchers came back 3 weeks later and asked those same people to put up the original, much larger sign in their yard. This time, 76% of people said they would put the larger sign on their lawn, even though they had turned it down originally. What does this study tell us? It's the perfect example of how asking for a small request first will help get you a yes to a bigger request later. Why does this work? People who first put up the small sign began to feel helpful. They also made a verbal as well as written agreement with the researchers to drive safely. In fact, these people most likely felt like very good citizens for putting up that sign. Therefore, when the researchers returned and asked those same people to put up the larger sign, they had fewer barriers to break. The homeowners already had been in agreement with the researchers. They already thought of themselves as helpful citizens, and they had already changed the look of their house by adding a message. Making it bigger would take a very small mental change, and that's why 76% said yes. Your leadership takeaway. How can you ask people you want to inspire to take small steps first?
Well, I think the challenge sometimes with videos like this is it doesn't go into what this looks like in practice. This is a really interesting concept for sure. And it's definitely applicable not only in leadership, but also in other aspects, such as sales. Salespeople often learn that before you get the big yes for something like a big contract, it's good to get small yeses, such as whether or not the prospect or buyer agrees with some of the features of a product. And I can see the parallel here. And I definitely think as a leader, it's important to get small yeses. But what I think is even more important is to focus our energy on what is the idea itself and how is it that we can message it in a way that will resonate with the people that we need the buy-in from. And this is usually where the concept of what's in it for you comes in. Instead of looking at the small yes, I think what's even better is how will it actually benefit the person you're talking to. So if you have an idea for changing some operational way to build the business, if you have an idea for some way that the team should change their strategy, what's better than getting a small yes and thinking about it that way, I think, is probably more along the lines of thinking about it from their perspective. Like, what's the intended outcome for them? How will this benefit them if they can actually do it? And I think having that lens is probably will go a lot longer way in the long run.
Skill number 2, embrace the Pygmalion effect. If you want to motivate the people around you, put away your wallet. Don't offer a bonus. Instead, break out the praise. A study by Professor Sadato and his associates focusing on social rewards found that receiving praise, not cash, was the best way to motivate participants. This is counterintuitive. Most of our society is structured around using cash motivators to increase our happiness. When you perform well at your job, you get a salary increase. When you want to reward an employee, you give them a bonus. When you need an incentive to motivate a child to do well, you dole out an allowance.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think that compensation is the benefit of compensation is that you are rewarding people for their hard work, right? You really can't deny that. I think it's out of touch to say that we should not compensate as a reward for doing better than your peers. Instead of compensating you with money, we're going to compensate you with praise. We have to better understand that both of these are intertwined and they have a relationship with one another. When it comes to compensation, of course, you want to reward people more for the good work that they're doing. And you want to have these incentives to ensure that they're staying consistently at a high level. And part of the reason that that's so important is because people are always looking outside of the job itself, or at least many people. There's lots of studies right now that are showing that 40, 50, 60% of current employees at a business are open to better opportunities if they arise. So if we're blindsided to the fact that higher compensation helps people perform better at their jobs and incentivizes them, then we're going to lose some of our top performers. Now, that said, just because that's a concept doesn't mean that we shouldn't also put attention and focus to praise. And I think more specifically, positive reinforcement, which is to say that when people are doing a really good job, we want to make sure that we recognize that. Oftentimes, we want to recognize that in front of other people for two reasons. One is it makes the person who's doing the good work look good. And secondly, is it motivates the people who may not be doing as well to want to do as well, because then they would get the praise as well. And the second important thing to remember is to also to praise very specifically, not just saying good job or good work, but what is it specifically that they did that is standout for you, that's differentiating them from their peers.
However, when researchers asked 48 participants to complete a finger tapping activity, the groups that received praise showed a significant.
That's nice. Let's move to the third one.
Skill number 3, logic or emotion? Do you think the world's greatest leaders primarily use logic or emotion? Our friends at Quantified Communications analyzed the communication patterns of the global leaders on Fortune's 2016 list to see if they communicate differently. They used their communication analytics platform to measure content samples from each leader. To measure persuasion, they analyzed 3 different tactics: logic, intuition, and emotion. Logic appeals to our heads and includes language that establishes reason, proof, and insight, often citing research and statistics to support main arguments. Intuition appeals to our gut. These appeals establish credibility through language that convinces audiences to see the speaker as an expert, including achievements, testimonials, and case studies. Emotion, of course, appeals to our hearts. These are the stories, the imagery, and the metaphors that help audiences become personally invested in the message. The researchers were surprised to find an unexpected blend. Instead of relying on logic alone, the world's greatest leaders used 2.9 times more appeals to emotion and 3.4 times more appeals to intuition. This preference for emotional and intuition-driven language over logic and data was universal among the leaders on Fortune's list. Your leadership takeaway: leaders should use a blend of emotion, intuition, and logic to appeal to their audiences. But focusing on the heart is more important than focusing on the head.
No, I think I don't think so, right? I think there's 2 parts to leadership. First of all, I mean, the first one is, it isn't just about what your team or group, the people you're leading, it's not just about what they're seeing from you, right? It's also about the decisions that are being made. So if you think about the CEO of a company, if the CEO of a company makes a decision to invest a lot in AI, artificial intelligence, like that should be a logical decision, right? There shouldn't be an emotional decision behind how much to invest in artificial intelligence, right? You should look at data and statistics and analytics and look at what competitors in your field are doing. You want to look at what the potential future revenue may be that comes from that potential investment. You want to look at with what level of certainty the investment will pay off. You want to work with analysts who have been studying AI for years or even decades to determine the right amount to invest. There is no emotion in those decisions, right? I mean, of course, emotion may to some degree creep in, but all of that is still within the leadership realm, right? So I think that sometimes there's this confusion about, yes, great leaders lead with emotion. Sure. I mean, when you're trying to get the buy-in from your team, of course you want to talk about things that would play to people's emotions, let's say, right? And that could be used to like get people excited, to create the necessary collaboration and buy-in that's needed down the road. But there's this whole other realm of leadership decision making that shouldn't involve emotion. And I think that's overlooked here.
Skill number 4, choose the right seat at the table. Leaders always get a
Let's just do 5 of these, and we'll finish. We'll go to some other videos in another video.
seat at the table. That's a given. But which seat is best? Leaders know how important body language and spacing is for perception. In fact, there's some fascinating research behind how and where we sit and how that affects our interactions. If you walked into a conference room, like the one pictured on the right, would you sit? The most powerful seat is seat A. Why? This seat is at the head of the table and is facing the door, so those sitting here can see everyone in the room as they walk in. Here's the catch. Not all leaders want to sit in the most powerful seat all the time. If you're going into a room to watch someone else present, attend a negotiation, or be seen and not heard, you would want to pick a different seat. Each seat means something different, and you should know the psychological layout of every room you enter. Skill number...
You know, I'm amazed that that's in a top 10 leadership, 10 leadership skills video. I wouldn't think that would be in the top 10. I think that would probably be top 50. But the only thing I'll add here, I mean, I'm sure there's some importance to it. The only thing I'll add is if you have a team and you're doing one-on-one sessions, you probably want to reduce the distance between you and that person. One-on-one situations should be a really good time to connect with people. And sometimes the way it's set up is you're sitting across from them, but usually it's good to be sitting such that you're perpendicular as opposed to parallel, let's say. And yeah, I think there's some concepts there that are important. The other thing is body language. It's good as the leader to match people's body language who are speaking. Be a chameleon there, and the more comfortable you help them become, the better they're actually going to be able to express their ideas. Oftentimes, they're going to have ideas that can help the team succeed. And of course, you want to create an environment and a culture that makes people feel comfortable bringing up thoughts and ideas that they have. And some of the best ways to do that is to make them comfortable. And a lot of that can go back to body language. So that's more of the realm that my thinking goes to. But certainly there's some things to think about when it comes to seating arrangements. All right, let's do one more.
Number 5, avoid empty calorie time. Have you ever spent hours doing something and then realized later it was a complete waste of time? This is especially frustrating when the activity itself had absolutely no purpose or benefit. I call this empty calorie time. We waste time doing nothing, but still use valuable brain energy. Leaders are extremely purposeful with their mental calories. They don't waste mental energy on junk activities. They consume and stick to nutritious mental nuggets. Here's why we're sucked into empty calorie activities. We are too tired to do anything productive. Want to stop working, but feel too guilty to take a real break. Are bored. Are procrastinating to avoid a project or activity that we dread. According to one study, when people were mind wandering, they reported feeling happy only 56% of the time. That's because in mind wandering, our brain can't rebuild. It's stuck in limbo. It's like eating cotton candy when you're starving. You're eating, but it isn't helping much. Your leadership takeaway. Be judicious with your mental energy. If you want to take a break, take a real break.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add here, I think this is pretty obvious as well, but the main takeaway I have with this one is to avoid gossip. So a lot of times what we see within companies and businesses and organizations is people talk with one another. They talk about certain projects or initiatives that aren't fruitful, won't help them be successful, and that's fine. I mean, people can talk, but managers and leaders should stay away from that. And a lot of times we see that where managers and director levels will talk about things that they can't control or talk about things that wouldn't help the desired outcome. And I think that that's the wasted calorie concept that's being discussed here. So anyway, that's the end of the video. I hope this was helpful, and we're going to do some more in the future. Thanks.